Welcome to episode 14 of the DWRD Net Stationery Feed. Today's guest is Lisa Marie of Poorly Controlled. Lisa Marie, welcome. And just why don't you introduce yourself and kind of tell us what Poorly Controlled is and like the Cliff Note version, and we'll get into the details later on.
So again, you've already said it. I'm Lisa Marie. My last name is Bradley. Poorly Controlled is a passion project that kind of turned into a small business.
Okay. So, as with all my guests, I've started out with kind of the standard questions so we kind of level set so people know what some of your stationery preferences are and things like that. So, to get started, what do you have inked? What have you been writing with lately?
So on the personal side of things, um, I've been kind of writing with a pen that my dad turned and made from a resin. I kind of cheesily plugged it as the dad collab, the most important collaboration of my life, but it's a combination of my sisters and I, his daughters, and our favorite colors as we were little, and now that we're grown women. So that's all of our favorite colors combined into one blank, and he made it into a pen. Um, that's what I work or write with in my journal. That's too precious to like use at work. So when I'm working and pouring, I'm just using click pens. And I'm ashamed at the fact that I'm not showing you an inked fountain pen.
Hey,
I am very precious with my pens, and I really haven't I've neglected my fountain pens, and I've got them out, and not a single one of them would write. I've got to clean them out and re-ink them. Be responsible.
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I was grabbing one of my pens yesterday to write with something, and I was like, "Man, this isn't writing." It had dried up in the converter because I try and rotate. I have a lot of pens inked currently, so I try and rotate them through, and it happens. I mean, we use them. I had a couple of years where I didn't touch a fountain pen. It's life. But when your fountain pens are inked, what do you like to ink them with? Are you I have these five inks that I love, or do you like to experiment with different inks? What are your general ink preferences?
So I have a lot of bottled inks, but I always go back to my dark blues and my gray. For some reason, I like an ink that looks like pencil lead. I can't explain it. I don't know why. It's just it's a comfort thing for me. So my favorite ink is Diamine. I think it's Earl Grey. And it's actually in a TWSBI Eco that I have that actually this one I did write with it, and it's fine. But I haven't used this. I went and looked at my logs. I haven't used that pen in like 2025. Like it's been forever since I've written with fountain pens because I'm precious with them. I don't use them
No,
like I should.
but that's a common thing for TWSBI. Olive Octopus Lisa, we were at a pen thing recently, and she's like, "Well, I've got like 10 or 15 TWSBIs that are always inked with certain colors, and they can sit there in the drawer forever. And you open it up, and it's probably going to write right away because they're sealed well. So, that's I like that. And but I do have there's an ink I used the other day that you might have to look into trying if you like the Diamine Earl Grey, Papier Plume Oyster Gray. Slightly
Ooh.
lighter, but it's a neat color. So I'll have to send you a link to the swatch, and I'll put a link. I think Lisa Olive Octopus has a swatch of that, and I know I have some too. So
Okay.
that's another neat one to try out.
So
So
do you prefer that in a fine, medium, or
almost all of my nibs are extra fine, so I'm not the best in preference. I write with the tiny nibs. That's just that's my preference because I have really small print handwriting. But you know, that's one that I think was on a recent Twitch stream where it was being swatched. So that's a good one that kind of has that not as dark, but since you like the pencil lead, it's going to be like the number two lighter. It's a little bit different. Very some variety to try in one of your other pens. So that's pens and inks. What about papers? Do you have favorites, or do you like to try different papers? What do you write on?
I write on everything. So my preference is like a cream paper and a lined paper, but I write like I have so many notebooks going right now. I'm ashamed to like hold them up and show you. But I journal in a Leuchtturm A5.
Okay.
size, I journal in that. And just because I was afraid of breaking my fountain pens that I have a number of, I've been using ballpoint pens just as quicker, easier click pen. But for work, I've been using these things.
Okay.
It's an A5 Noble Note section 2 millimeter grid, which is amazing. But I've just been using this and it's a cream paper and it's so smooth. The one thing is I have to use ballpoint or gel and like leave it open because it's not fast drying. But I
So,
love this
fun
paper.
note: the paper I have for this is 2 millimeter grid. It's the Plotter Blue 2 millimeter grid. I love the Clyde that 2 millimeter grid, especially with small handwriting. It's either that or dot grid. Unless I'm journaling, almost every journal is lined because there's something mentally about writing in a journal. It should be on lined paper, and that's just how it has to be. So, and then for the final of the opening questions, what's your favorite stationery adjacent item? And I always like to give the quick description of what that is, like a bag, a book weight, a lap desk. What is your favorite adjacent item?
I have a lot of bags and I switch my bags out a lot. So I love the rickshaw matching set. They're not all matching, but I made them match as closely as I could. But I love these because I can just plop them in different bags. So for me, I gotta say thank you to Rickshaw because they make amazing things that keep your fountain pens safe. I know because they're not hurt. I haven't broken any and I need to use them more.
No, that's been a common theme among people I've interviewed so far. Almost everybody has rickshaw. They might not have a ton, or they might have a ton and use them all, but it's kind of a staple in the stationery hobby. I think once you kind of get into it, you're going to have a rickshaw of some sort, be it a one pin, a Sinclair, a bonsai, or eventually all of them. Because you have to put the Sinclair or the individual sleeves in the bonsai. That's just kind of how it works. So now that we have all the kind of intro, getting to know your preferences, let's talk poorly controlled. So just to kind of start off, how long were you into pens and stationery and the hobby as a whole before you decided, hey, I want to make blanks?
So we're going to go way back. I was talking to my mom a little bit about this earlier today, and she's like, you used to take ballpoint pens and calendars. She's like, you were 2 years old and you would just sit there and you would just draw curly cues all over everything. So I've always had a thing for pens and paper. I can remember being in kindergarten and they gave me the really large number 2 pencil that's like, I can't even like cheese stick size and crayons like that. And I was so upset, like, just give me a ballpoint pen. Like, I can remember telling my kindergarten teacher, like, I don't like this. So I've always had a thing for pens and paper. And then I went back to school in 2009 and I needed to study for my boards in 2012. And so I take a lot of notes. I'm a very visual learner and I draw things and I rewrite things. And I got tired of the Sharpie pens and the big flares running out of ink. And I'm like, this is so wasteful. So somehow fountain pens popped up. So I started with the Lamy All Star, Lamy Safari, and I can't remember. There's a third one, but I can't remember. They were all Lamies. And I'm like, I didn't feel bad using all that ink and different colors. Like I can still picture the color paper I wrote on, the color ink it was in, and the pen that I used. And when I sat down for my boards, it clicked. So that was 2014 when I took my boards. Didn't go to my first pen show until,
Okay.
and that was the Orlando first pen show. I think, forgive me, I might be off on the years, but I think it was 2022. And that year I went specifically looking for just vintage pens. In 2023, can't remember. I'm probably off on my dates, but anyways, 2023 is when I was watching videos on how to prepare for a fountain pen show. And I came across Corinna Loves to Plan, and how there was a certain pen that she had that I had fallen in love with. And she talked about the maker and how sweet and kind that maker was. And the way she described the maker, I felt comfortable talking to that maker, and that maker is Bart of Zodiac Pens. So in 2023, September of 2023, I met Bart and talked to him at length. And I don't know how we got on the subject of, like, basically, he's like, you're creative, you have a mind for it, you need to pour blanks, but don't pour a blank until it's something different. So I racked my brain from September of 2023 until basically, I think December 2023. And I was like, Eureka, I think I have it. So I started testing and pouring in January of 2024. And to commit to things, I started an Instagram, and basically Bart is the one who like spoke it into existence. Um, Francisco and Jim and Elise of Heinz Pens were kind of like, just don't pour anything until you've got something new and innovative to pour, and be respectful of the makers who've gone before you. And I've tried. I feel like a lot of times I might be stepping on people's toes, but there are only so many colors in the world. Um, but so from 2014 until basically 2024, so 10 years of being a consumer and loving the community and wanting to be a part of the other side of the community, but not knowing how. And then after meeting Bart and speaking to him and learning that you can do this. So he referred me to YouTube, and Jake Thompson and Zach Higgins are basically my teachers. I have met with and seen other makers, but I've never stood beside someone and poured physically. I've always been by myself pouring.
Very
10
neat.
years?
No, that's a great story. It's like, the best kind of origin story. I met somebody who I saw a great description of, seems like, hey, I think I could talk to that person and have a good conversation. And then elapse a few years later, and now, you're probably at the point where people are coming to you saying, hey, I want to get into this. How do I do this? So it's the pen and stationery community is very unique in that it's so inviting. There's really not gatekeeping. It's this weird kind of bubble that, you know, there's always, I'm sure, someone here or someone there, but overall, it's everybody kind of gets along. We're all in this to write things down and have a good time. So when you got in and decided to do this, how did you come up with the name Poorly Controlled?
That's a funny story. So I'll tell you some of the names. We were at breakfast, my husband and I. We have this date day thing where he'll take Fridays off and spend them with me. And on this one particular Friday, we went to breakfast and we were just tossing. I'm like, I need a name. I need a name. And he's like, I I like the name Poorly for some reason. Like, just Poorly was there. I'm like, I'm pouring. So it's funny. And Poorly, instead of OOR, it's OUR. So it was just a play on that. And then he's like, well, how about Poorly Constructed? And I'm like, no, that's horrible. I'm like, we can't call it that. And he goes, well, what about Controlled? He's like, you're out of control. You like to think you're a control freak, but you're out of control. He goes, what about Poorly Controlled? And I'm like, yeah. But it's funny, if you Google Poorly Controlled, you're going to get something about diabetes. And I love that. I find that hilarious. Like, I haven't optimized any of my Google anything. So if you don't spell it right, you probably won't find me.
I already love it. The because that's always the thing when people are like, I'm gonna do this thing, and it's like my YouTube name I get asked about, and I'm actually showing a video at some point, but DWRD are my initials, and I got DWRD.net in like January 1st of 2000. So I've had the YouTube name forever, and once you kind of have a name on a Google thing, you can't really change it easily. It's kind of there. So I'm like, I just run with it, and I get people ask, how do you pronounce it? And I was like, I always just say DWRD because it's my initials, but I've heard DWRDnet. There's a guy the other day in Arkansas, he's like, it reads DwarfNet to me, because just the kind of how it looks. So naming and things like that, it's always great. So you kind of already answered, how you got started, that, you got started from watching the videos, and then at what point after, the initial video, when did you actually reach out and talk to another pourer and be like, "Hey, I'm stuck at this thing. I need some help. Do you have any advice?" You know, when did
Um,
it progress to that point?
so I started pouring in January, and that was, yeah, January of 2024. And then I went to the Atlanta Pen Show. Forgive me, I think that's in April. I think it was April of 2024. And like the first person that I actually was like, hey, something's going on. And I actually asked for help. And it was Elise of Starry Night Resins. And she was like, oh, this is what's going wrong. Have you tried this? And I was like, oh, Eureka, thank you. I'm going to try that as soon as I get home. But right now, I don't know why. I have this weird, and I think it's the way I was raised. Like, I learn best by doing. And what is that? Mess around and find out type thing. Like, I wonder if this will work. And honest to goodness, that's how I work best. So, unless it's absolutely something I can't get past, like moisture in a pressure pot, not a good thing. And it was Elise who like fixed that for me and told me maybe try that. That's probably what's making your resin not do what it's supposed to do. Um, so that was like January to April. And like that made all the difference in the world. I don't, I can't think of another occasion where I've like tried to reach out. So many people have offered and said, like, if you have issues, let us know. There are some things that I want to do that I don't think are possible. Rob Sanchez of I just went blank. Rob's Penworks. Like he's been a great help too, overcoming some of my obstacles of, well, can I do this? Is that possible? And he's kind of a sounding board too. And he has been for, I don't remember exactly how long, but he's been helpful too. Michaela White Bear, she's always said, if you need anything, let me know. But like you say, the community, they're very warm and welcoming. I just, if I can figure it out on my own, I want to figure it out on my own. So then, I don't know.
No, I fully
I feel like I
understand
have
that.
to
I fully get
earn,
that.
I have to earn my place in the community. I'm,
See, and I get the trial and error because I also, in many things, I'd rather try it and figure it out. I work in IT as a day job, and there's a lot of trial and error. Why is this not working until you get it? But once you get it, you're never going to make those same mistakes or whatnot again because it's ingrained in memory. But to your other point, you know, I don't, like I said, there's not gatekeeping. I don't think you have to earn a place in this community. You're already making blanks. You're doing the thing already, and you know that's always for any hobby or whatnot. It's more ourselves thinking, "Oh, we have to do this," where you really don't. You're already doing the thing. It's and that's where, especially in the pen community, because I've interviewed a few makers. I have local makers, blank pours, they all like each other. They all use each other's materials. They all are friends. They all bounce ideas off each other because talking to someone who's doing the same thing you're doing is going to make it easier for you to do more because that little, oh, wait, I haven't done this thing that I can try when I get back home to my shop, or little things like that. So you got into blank pouring, but have you ever do you have any interest in moving to the other side of actually making pins or turning pins, or are you just kind of sticking to the blank side of things?
so you didn't ask this, but I'm just going to interject it. My Grail pen is one that I've made.
Awesome.
So yeah, I don't know when or if, but someday I will have a pen that I've made start to finish. And I don't know when it'll happen. I mean, I truly enjoy pouring of the blanks, but I'm telling you, I pour blanks that I want, that inspire me, that I hope inspire others to make something. And I tell you what, there's a couple of blanks I've made that's like, "Ooh, I could do that with that." And I just, yeah, eventually someday I would like to be a pen turner.
No, and
That's my dream.
I'm not gonna lie. It's I know myself, and I know eventually I'm gonna get into it because I find it interesting, and I like making things, and doing that, having that creative outlet, but I also know that I don't want to make poor purchasing decisions or whatnot. So I know the first pen I make will probably be with Nick Pasquale of Pens by Pasquale, because he said, "Oh yeah, you need to come out to the shop someday. You can video. And we'll make a pen." And I was like, "Yes, yes, please." And just to get started, but I know that that's going to devolve into, okay, what lathe do I need, and then what do I need here, and what do I need here, and whatnot. So that's really cool that you already have that set. And do you know which one of your blanks is going to be that pin, or are you going to make a special one at that time whenever you have the
That's a
schedule
really good
set up?
question because I imagine it's going to be a year or more down the road. So I should have a lot to choose from. And every time I pour another one, I'm like, oh, that's the one I'm going to turn first. And no, I know that sounds so not humble. It sounds so conceited, but like, I love what I do. I literally pour my heart and soul into these things, and like it's hard to pick just one of my children. I don't. They're all my favorite.
I don't think that sounds conceited at all. Just I want to put that out there because it, you might not be waiting a year. With the list of makers that you rattled off of people who are like, "Oh, I have time to help," almost any of those, if you show up in their shop with one of your blanks, they can walk you through making a pin that day. Now that might be like wetting the whistle for the true made it myself if you want to eventually get to the point of making multiple, but to make a pin, I'm sure you know you could easily send a message or be like, "Hey, can I come visit and make a pin?" That
Listen, when I found out you're in Nashville, I'm like, I grew up in part of my life in Tennessee, and I'm like, I know Nashville. We're gonna have to stop by there now. On the way to see friends. I'm going to Nashville, and I'm gonna hunt all of you guys down. Be like messaging you. Is today a day where you guys are having coffee? Cause where are we going? I can't
no,
wait. I am.
you'd have to bring some blanks because I know I've had offers from TriStar Studios and Nick, who are in Columbia, which is right outside, and there's one of our
Yeah,
local stationery stores there. And Nick even hosts pin turner gatherings at times, so he said there's going to be one of those happening at some point. So that might have to be your time to go visit and meet a bunch of these pin makers who probably have turned your blanks. You know,
be crazy.
it'd be a neat experience. So that's cool to know that at some point there will be a pen made by Lisa Marie, possibly more. But when you're making blanks, you said you pour your heart and soul into it, which is awesome. But where do you get the inspiration from for like the color combinations? And the second part of that, do you come up with names before you pour? Or does the name follow after? Or is it kind of a depend on the combo?
So sometimes I pour things in my head before I ever go to the bench and like actually mix things. Um, a specific example of what you're talking about. I have this memory of this swatch watch that I wanted when I was young, and it was these beautiful pastel colors. And I'm like, you know what would be really cool is to pour a blank that looks like that swatch watch I couldn't get when I was a kid. So I poured it and I'm like, well, I can't call it swatch watch. So trademark name. So I ended up calling it Sherbert Dreams. So that's kind of where that came from. Pegasus Party, that one is inspired by a My Little Pony I had. It wasn't a name brand My Little Pony, but it was an off-brand My Little Pony that I had growing up. Um, then there are other things that I love vintage pens, so I have a lot that remind me so much of the vintage colors, the oranges and the reds and the blues, where it's like the dark and the light together. Um, I get a lot. I love water. I live near water, and I love transparency and being able to see through things, and I get inspiration from there. And I like ethereal and cosmic things. So it's kind of everything. So nature, space, water, ice, memories, childhood memories. It just whatever crosses my mind, I'm like, "Well, what would that look like in a blank? Let's try that."
Well, yeah, that
And
I like that. That's because that's one thing with sometimes it's easy to get, to pigeonhole yourself in a hobby or something with it's supposed to be a very creative outlet. Oh, I can only make this one thing, that I have to make this one thing all the time versus, oh, I can make that one thing, but I also want to make this one and that one and that one. And oh, wait, I'm in the middle of working on this, but what if I combine these two together? It's nice that you're able to kind of, it's an open ended creative outlet of, because colors are going to, regardless of what you pour, it's going to turn into something cool looking for
right.
somebody. And that's what we were having this conversation this last weekend when we went to Arkansas. And depending on when this will be released a little bit after, so it's not right before this was released. Just give that disclaimer. But Nick and Scott from TriStar and Pens by Pasquale took some pens with them. The pens that they had made a while ago were the ones that they found their homes. Because sometimes it's, oh, this is the newest pen I made. This is the one that's going to sell. But I like to think the pen just has to find the right person, because it could be the pen that was made a year ago, but when the right person comes along, that's the only pen that's going to, work. That it has to be that, you know. So
It's
it's a
funny you
neat.
say that. That's how I met Lisa. Met her the weekend in Atlanta in 2024 and just she's just a cool chick, like cool as can be. And she had this bag, rickshaw bag, with the octopus on it. And I was just floored by it. The art was stunning. And we struck up a conversation and then we did what is it, After Dark. She showed me inks and sampled some things that I'd never seen and knew they existed. And she gifted me a pen that's still one of my favorites. And I don't tell her, don't watch this. I can't find it, but it's a little red shark, Jinhao shark pen, and I love that pen. It writes like a dream. Um, but then seeing her and just I don't know how it happened. I think I was going around to say goodbye to everybody. I was leaving the show and she's standing at that table and Lisa Marie bought as far as yeah, because Bart was the only one who had my material at that time. She bought the first pen in my material. So, and Lisa Marie, and she's Lisa, like just kindred spirits. Like she will always have a place in my heart. So you talk about, I was so nervous, like, are my pens going to be something that people, or not my pens, sorry, Bart, are my materials going to be something that people want? And like she was just confirmation that, hey, this might work. This might be something that you can do. And I'll forever be grateful for her. Like, I have a lot more words, but I won't say them. I just
No, and that's that cool thing, because I remember hearing that story on one of her Twitch streams. She was saying, telling the story about, I believe it involved y'all met, you wanted to look at a pen out in the sunlight, you got locked out and had to walk around the venue. So those are the kind of memories that are always going to be there. And it's, all the commonalities that came into play, and the fact that y'all had met, had a conversation, and then you end up and she ends up picking off the table a blank that you made. That's just a cool story. I mean, that it's so unique, and because there are a lot of Lisas in the stationery world, so when you factor that in, it's a cool story. But to go along those lines, because this does tie in really well, and it's a good segue of, you know, I've heard people say that you can tell a Lisa Marie poorly controlled blank by sight. So do you feel like you have a signature style to your blanks? Because that is a thing that happened in Arkansas when Olive Octopus Lisa bought a second pen made of one of your blanks. I believe it was a Magnolia. I believe I'm correct on this, but she saw the blank, is like, oh, that's a Lisa Marie blank. So do you feel like you have a signature look or style, or is it just you happen to pour color combos that fit that certain look?
so I try really, really hard. That's such a formidable statement to me, signature style. I try. I just wanted to be different and I wanted to be unique and I I it happened. It was it happened. And I'll never be able to express how grateful and like shocked I am that this I tried it and it worked and like I'm almost speechless because I'm taken aback by it. I try.
No, it sounds
Um,
like from what you've been describing, you know, when you were first wanting to get started, two well-respected people in that world said, find a way to be different, and you took that advice and you ran with it. So now you have the signature poorly controlled style that, has that unique look that if because even if anybody can go up and look at it and go, oh, I know who made that blank, because there's other, I'm sure, makers like D Squared Arts, Daryl,
yes,
some of his
yes.
layered blanks, I'm like, oh, that's Daryl's, so there's other styles, but yours has the unique look, and that's not a bad thing. You have a signature, even if you didn't mean to. You were just wanting to do something different, but you inadvertently made a signature style without realizing it. It sounds like.
Well, I'm so grateful and thankful and like I wanted to be a part of the community and this has just been like every dream has come true. Like someone spoke it into existence. And if you guys want to blame someone, you can blame Bart at Zodiac Pens. It's his fault. Because he's like, pour me something different. So I blame him.
That's a great problem to have, though. I mean, blaming someone for planting the idea that turned into a side business that lets you express creativity, that's just a win-win scenario, I believe. But to go into the next question, how cool is it to see the variety of pens from all these makers made out of blanks that you poured in your home shop?
Can you give me an hour? Can I name them all? Like, I can't believe how well traveled these blanks are now. Like, and people that I have met and admired their work. There was one today. I shared a story. John Tello, Hello Tello. Like it's surreal. Like it's hard to describe. If you know me, you know that I'm gonna go cry after this, and I get emotionally overwhelmed, and I'm just so thankful because these are my little babies that I send out into the world, and like the genius pens and things that are created out of these things. Like I have a picture of what I think, and then they go and just blow it out of the water even more. I'm like, and I have people, I'm so fortunate that I have people that they're like, Lisa, can you do this? Can you do that? And I am trying to figure out ways to do some of the things that people have asked me to do. And it's, it's hard. It's hard and I'm trying and I won't name names. There are people out there that have asked me to try to do things for them and I'm still working on it. I haven't perfected it. I have perfectionism issues. Like, so there are blanks that people are like, oh yeah, that would be a cool blank to have. I'm like, nope, that's a mess up. Looks like a slaughterhouse floor. We're not sending that one out.
See, but the counterpoint to that is, especially if you have that it has to be perfect mentality, I bet your discard bin is just a treasure trove for makers, because they're going to look at it and go, oh, I could make something out of that, or oh, I could make something out of that. you know if it's I understand if there's like a temperature got too high and the pour didn't work, but if it's color combos, don't restrict yourself,
Oh,
because that's
yeah,
one
it's
thing I've
color
learned.
combos.
But that's one thing I've learned in hanging out with pen makers. I've seen, one of the coffee meetups where, one walks in with a tote and sets it down, hey, look at all these blanks I got from all over. And then it's like, sorting through, and then the stacks develop of, hey, I want these 5 from you, I want these 10, or, oh, you're ordering from so and so, order some extra of this because I want to try making, and so don't restrict. Just, it might be not be one of your signature colors, but there's still going to be a maker who's going to look at those materials and be like, oh, I can make something out of that. And because, like you said, seeing the pins, you're doing one part of the creative process, the maker is doing their own. Because the best, think of pocket pins. That doesn't take as much material, so it might be half of one of those blanks that you're like, oh, that's not going to work. Half of it might be perfect to make the right pin. So, just saying, don't limit yourself on that, because that just, to me, that's a cooler way. What you thought is not ready for prime time can be turned into a unique pin that someone's going to see on the table and go, I must have that right now, take my money, and then they're going to keep using it going forward.
Well, I need to take better notes on how I messed up my mess ups, because if that's the case, yeah,
Yeah,
there'll
but
be a lot for people to sort through,
just think of the Bob Ross. They're happy accidents. Because
right? That's not where I wanted the tree.
I recently was talking, the episode with Chad of Eel and Anchor, and I saw him when I was in Arkansas, and he self-professes he doesn't write down recipes. He just kind of goes with the flow of, I'm going to try this and see what happens. And you know
You know
what?
who else is like that? I'm going to name names here. Abby of Maverick Pens. She's like, oh, yeah, I don't write anything down. And I'm like, you're a freaking genius. Like, if I don't write down my phone number, I'll forget it. Like, I write down everything. That amazes me. There's 2 of them in the world?
Well, but let me be clear. Chad doesn't write it down because he likes to experiment and make. So if he had to reproduce one of his blanks, he said this. He's like, I don't know. I mean, it's not going to be exact because I don't remember what I put in them. So if it's a blank he poured, he might not be able to reproduce it. But he likes that. It's a creative, once again, it's a creative outlet that limited supply. You might make something similar, but think of any batch of something that's poured. It doesn't take much for one blank, because I just bought a Leonardo, and I went and looked through every single box to find the one that I like the look of that one best,
Yep.
because the material is all going to be slightly different. And it might be, oh, I like the colors, but this, when I'm holding it, that one splotch there, that's just going to bother me if I'm looking, So there's that uniqueness to the resin pouring, the resins as a whole, because that outer layer, it's going to be turned down anyway, so you really have no idea what's going to be inside until you're making the pins.
And I cheat because I get to go. My dad has like a 1930s era Craftsman metal lathe, metal machine lathe. And so I'll take my stuff to dad's, and like I do a happy dance almost every time I put something on the lathe, because it's like, well, that's what it looks like, but does it really look like that? No, it's once you get inside, it's like, whoa, that turned out way better than I thought. But I do have one that looks like the slaughterhouse floor, that I'm sure there's a butcher out there who needs a fountain pen out of slaughterhouse floor.
Hey,
That's like the one that I'm like,
Esterbrook released the vampire pin. That's kind of a slaughterhouse floor looking pin. So, and they're mass producing it and selling a bunch, and they just call it a vampire. So, who knows?
well, this one has how do you say it? You can tell that it's my mess up. But yeah, I
Well,
intended one thing and it didn't happen.
I'm going to make a request that you keep that blank, and whenever you make pins, you make one out of the Ferrari and you make one out of the Pinto, because I guarantee that'll be
Yeah.
one of your most memorable pins, because you're like, this is a material that should never see the light of day, and then you're going to turn a pin out of it, and it's going to be a
Yeah.
pin that you're going to use all the time. Because, like, you know, I thought this was going in the trash bin, and then you clean it up, you make it look like a pin, put a nib in it, and you're going to be like, okay, now I got to write this all the time. But since you're saying slaughterhouse floor, if the mysterious red gin hell shark has gone on to bigger ocean, maybe that's going to be the shark replacement. It's red, and there you go. So
Yeah.
you have a way to replace it with what's old is new, or something along those
Yes.
lines. So I only have one question left, and this is the same question that I've ended all of these interviews with. What's next for Poorly Controlled?
That is a really good question. More pours and someday more pens. I'm very fortunate right now. My husband and I have decided we're going to attend the DC Pen Show. So for me, it's just getting to DC. It's pouring, filling orders because I'm very fortunate that I have orders. Like, you guys amaze me. I have orders. Um, but then I also want to get up and be inspired. Like, like you say, meet other people, talk to other people, be inspired by other people. Um, it gets lonely in my shop. I mean, my dad puts up with me and he's mechanically, he helps me. But when it comes to like the all encompassing fountain pen, stationery world, like I have really missed my people. I haven't been to a show and I don't since September of last year, and I miss my people. I have to get back. So I need to be inspired. So what's next for Poorly Controlled? I'm gonna come seek all of y'all out and hang out with y'all and pick your brains.
Oh, that's awesome. So everybody's put on notice. Poorly Controlled coming to a city near you to talk pens and papers and blanks and all of the things. So that's a perfect way to kind of wrap up. And you know be sure and look at the video description, because we'll put references to a lot of the makers we've talked about, and shows and whatnot, and how to find Lisa Marie's blanks and her website and all that. So definitely check out the description. And Lisa Marie, I just want to say thank you. I've been looking forward to this one just because I've seen the blanks, I've seen the pens made from the blanks, and hearing the cool stories of from the other Lisa, Olive Octopus, of how y'all met. That was just a unique experience. And, you know, it's great when people in the purchasing side support people in the maker side, and all of the makers and blank pourers. It's like a big extended happy family, at least from all the part I've seen, and that's just a cool experience. So thanks for being a part of that. And at some point, if history holds true, after I've done all these interviews, I've ended up purchasing either a pen or a blank or something from everybody. So I'm sure I will be adding a pen made from a Poorly Controlled blank into the collection at some point, once I find
Well,
the right combo to add into the arsenal.
I'll shoot you a picture of the slaughterhouse pen that you've spoken to existence. I'll see, but I don't expect you to pick that one. But no, I thank you for getting to know you and sharing probably more information than people ever wanted to hear.
You say that, and I'm sure this will be well received, because everybody likes hearing the behind the scenes, the origin stories, like we referenced. It's always
Yeah.
great to hear the origin stories, to see how the blank came into being, that is now a pen that is probably in their rickshaw, that they're going to pull out and use to write on their next sheet of paper. So don't forget, we do have the interviews available on Apple Podcast and on Spotify, but definitely YouTube is the best way to watch it, because you can see the video. So if, like Lisa Marie holding up her collection of rickshaws, that's only going to be available in the video version on YouTube. So I'm going to leave you for now. Lisa Marie, thanks again. And until next time, I'll catch you on the next episode.